In this video you will learn whether you need insulin control or calorie deficit for fat loss. You will also understand the biological mechanism behind it and learn how to practically approach it. My name is Shimon and welcome back to my channel. Let's go! There are at least two major camps in the world of dieting, weight loss, health and so on, and I would like to address both of these camps, or should I say their theses, in this video. One camp focusing on calorie deficit and often claiming that first, calorie deficit is necessary to induce fat loss, and second, that it's the only thing that matters. The other camp is focusing only on insulin, claiming that if you keep your insulin low, you will lose fat no matter what, and calories don't really matter. Let me hereby attempt to make sense of both. First of all, let me answer the question definitely. Do you need calorie deficit or insulin control to lose body fat? The answer is absolutely both. There is absolutely no way in Earth to lose fat without calorie deficit. You simply cannot shrink your fat cells without using more energy than you consume. That's the basic fact. However, there is much nuance to this. What is also true is that you still need insulin to be low enough for this process to work. And in reverse, you need some elevated insulin to gain weight as well and expand your tissues. So let me explain the mechanism. A fat cell stores energy when insulin is elevated. That is non-negotiable. Insulin is the necessary signal that tells your fat cells store this. Without elevated insulin, the fat cell cannot grow, no matter how many calories are coming in. But here's where the calorie people have the point. If insulin stays low and you're eating far more energy than your body needs, the body has to dispose of it somehow. So, when insulin is low, the body has three primary strategies to make use of excess energy. First one, it increases the metabolic rate. Your engine just revs faster. This is when your metabolism gets better. To get rid of excess energy, you move more, talk more, you even think more intensely, and you're more energetic overall. Second way is to make more ketones, and ketones have caloric value. When you're producing ketones in absence of carbohydrates, you're excreting some of them, literally wasting calories out, at least partially, through your breath and urine. Third, the body simply cannot store this energy efficiently, so it prioritizes burning the energy that's coming in. That circles back to improved metabolism. But we are talking only about the scenario when calories are higher and higher and insulin manages to stay low. Caveat: if you consume a calorie surplus that is large enough, even with very low or no carbohydrates, you can still absolutely store some fat, because your insulin will eventually climb due to protein consumption and a very modest response to the fat you get, but this will typically happen at way higher calorie level than it would in a scenario of abundant carbohydrates. It's just that the modest response of insulin to fat is multiplied by the overall calories in this fat, thus making you store some energy in the fat cells eventually. It's just harder and harder to put on some weight the more you restrict carbohydrates. So that's absolutely a good thing, unless you're trying or you need to gain weight. Now let's flip the scenario. High insulin, high calories. That's the worst combination. Insulin locks fat into the fat cells and prevents it from leaving. You gain fat fast, while the caloric surplus gives the cells plenty of energy to store. And that's the main scenario mostly responsible for the obesity epidemic as well as chronic disease pandemic in the world right now. Here's the reconciliation. Insulin control is the hormonal prerequisite. Calorie deficit dictates how deep you access your stored fat once insulin is low. Here's the important part. Without controlling insulin, trying to lose weight becomes a hunger battle. You're fighting your physiology almost every moment. Hunger wins eventually, and people quit. With insulin controlled first through carbohydrate restriction, adequate protein and incorporating some fasting, hunger drops naturally. At that point, a modest calorie deficit while controlling carbohydrates becomes sustainable, and it's not misery anymore. Think about it. If you try to achieve fat loss without addressing insulin first, you will inevitably lose some weight through calorie deficit only, even without counting macros, even eating carbs only, or just whatever you want, or any standard or just bad diet model. And calorie deficit eventually forces insulin to be lower, but not in an effective way. But it will be exponentially harder and harder with passing time on this calorie deficit only approach. If the insulin is still high, because it gets lower slowly and not effectively, your glucose drops dramatically due to calorie deficit, but your still high insulin tells your body to still store some energy, or should I say to use less of it. Remember, high insulin tells your body to store, not to use energy, so it fights back. You become lethargic, you move less, so your metabolism slows down, eventually making your calorie deficit smaller and smaller, even if you eat less and less. You find yourself in a trap. You eat way less than before you started your fat loss journey. You try to stick to your deficit, but it seems to be working less and less effectively. So you lower your calories even more, because it's only calorie deficit that matters, right? Now you have even less energy, you feel even worse, and you still have plenty of fat to lose. It's just still locked in the fat cells because of high insulin. And guess what? You start to lose muscle, bones, and other lean tissue as well in the process. Not to mention your brain energy, thinking clarity, libido, and will to live. You see where this goes? That is exactly why so many people struggle to lose fat and fail. It's not really about their discipline and adherence. Although in some problematic cases that is the invincible problem. But mostly it's the bad dietary approach and strategy that doesn't promote your body's internal mechanisms that are there designed to safely lose fat, preserve muscle, good mood, energy and metabolic rate, and to gain and maintain health long term. Wait a minute. So why do so many people, or should I say just some people, succeed on this fat loss journey even while keeping their carbohydrates high and not really taking care of their insulin? First of all, they are relatively rare cases, but there's enough of them to seem to support the claim about calorie deficit being the only thing that matters. But what I noticed over the years, these are mostly the most disciplined people, being able to literally suffer through their journey, to force themselves through the negative metabolic adaptations. Their insulin eventually lowers when they suffer long enough, and some of them even don't lose their health in the process. That's awesome, right? In most cases, they just manage to stay physically active or get more and more physically active thanks to their discipline. They work out their way through misery using gym, running, and using a variety of different methods to fight immense food cravings that happen to appear in this process. In some cases, they are so active, they do so much intense cardio and weightlifting that they achieve success by entering ketosis often enough because they burn through all these carbohydrates that they consume. It's just extremely hard and for most people, frankly, impossible. And some of them, honestly a very low percent, do succeed, but most of them, let's be honest, enter yo-yo land, like the participants of this TV show The Biggest Loser. It's just not sustainable long-term for most people, and only the most disciplined and genetically blessed succeed on such terrible strategy that failed millions of others. So there must be a better way, right? And of course there is. It's lowering your insulin first, getting fat adapted, slowly introducing more movement and exercise in the process, and sticking to the metabolically favorable state of ketosis or just being fat adapted, so you're processing your energy at way higher metabolic rate without the misery. It's just the way we evolved and thrive as a species. Eating foods optimal for humans, setting right biological environment, and then inducing losing fat through calorie deficit as a tool. At the same time preserving your muscle, having enough energy, optimized hormones, and getting the variety of therapeutical benefits of this diet. That's what I want you to take out of this video. So the practical hierarchy is: start with insulin, lower your carbs, prioritize protein, eat to satiety, and do this for weeks. Your fasting insulin drops, your hunger normalizes, your metabolic rate ticks up, and your health actually gets better. Only then, if you want faster fat loss, a calorie deficit becomes manageable because you're not starving yourself anymore. But the calorie restriction only works long term because your insulin is already under control. The insulin-only camp is right that calories alone fail when insulin is high. The calorie camp is right that you eventually need calorie deficit to shrink fat cells. They shouldn't be considered opponents. Insulin is the gatekeeper, calorie deficit is the shovel. You need both. In that order. That would be it for today. If you appreciate what I'm doing, please drop a comment, like, subscribe, and check out my other videos. And most importantly, stay healthy. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Szymon, and I wish you a great day. See you in the next one.